Hi everyone, and welcome to my show. Today we're going to talk about a few things that are of interest to me, and only to me because no one else seems to watch me, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. I'm going to talk about a number of things that have occurred over the last few days. Number one is, we're getting ready for legislation to be passed in relation to ICAC, and that's pretty exciting in itself. Because what it does mean is that eventually our politicians are going to be liable for all the crap that they say and do, particularly, I think, around transparency. So there's been a number of issues over the years around the government just not being transparent about whatever it is that they do, and we're eventually going to find a way in which to hold them to account when they stuff up. And I think one of those areas in particular is going to be around port barrelling and how they often tend to allot money to certain areas, give money to certain people where money should not be given, call in favours from people with whom they shouldn't have favours from in the first place, and eventually, hopefully, they will be caught out for behaving badly. And also for those that, the public servants that perhaps bullying or doing things within their own organisations which they should not be doing, and that where there's an opportunity for whistleblowers to come forward and talk about how they have experienced other people within the public service, I think ICAC might be a good way to sort of weed out those people who act badly as either politicians or public servants. And I am pretty certain there are plenty of them, in fact. So let's see how ICAC works out. We've got now a parliament whereby here in Australia, everybody seems to be in agreement with ICAC. It is beyond me why the Liberal Party, while in government for 9 years, chose to do nothing about this. Makes you wonder what it is that they specifically were afraid of. And maybe they were afraid of themselves. Perhaps they were fearful that they might have been caught out if they implemented something which would indicate their own wrongdoings. So who knows how this is going to work out. I know that Peter Dutton, the most insincere individual on the face of this planet, he has agreed to most of the recommendations that will go to Parliament tomorrow. So we're anxious to see this go through, because the electorate actually chose the politicians during the last election a couple of months ago based on what they want, what the electorate wanted, which was basically to have an open and transparent government. And the Labor Party saw the opportunity to be able to do something about that, and so did the Teal group of people, those independents who wanted this thing. And as a result of all of that, I think they have a mandate, definitely, to do this, and hopefully it will take shape in the next week or so while this legislation travels its way through the lower house and then the Senate. So that's all looking good. Peter Dutton, though, I need to say, is not looking too crash hot. I keep watching Question Time, and it's just like watching a stunned mullet, not really knowing what it's going to do. It's out of its water. It's certainly not surviving very, very well. And I do wonder how long Peter Dutton's likely to hold on to the leadership of the Liberal Party, given how poorly he is performing. He actually appeared on Four Corners on Monday night. Now, I always think if you're going to go on an ABC program, make sure that they're on your side, because if they're not, or if they even attempt to give a balanced view, which I think they tended to do with Peter Dutton, they had some people that were in favour of him, thought he was the greatest thing since Jesus Christ, and there were others who were extremely critical of him, and some of their outtakes demonstrated that there's a Peter Dutton there that's pretty damn insincere. And so he went on the program. Someone asked him, in fact, why are you going on the program? He thought, well, people need to know who I am, and sure, we now do. And I don't think for anybody that was watching that program, your version of Peter Dutton would necessarily have changed. So let's see what transpires with regard to Dutton. There's a number of people in opposition now and who are just basically clowns, where the media's made fun of them, and the government has taken that opportunity to rip them apart during question time. Kind of fun to watch. Used to be entertaining to watch question time, to watch a whole lot of kindergarten kids find ways to misbehave and being told off by the teacher all the time, namely the speaker, about keeping quiet. Nowadays, interestingly enough, the same sort of stuff happens, but if anybody's getting beaten, it's the bullies on the Labor side that have beaten up the poor little kids on the other side. And the speaker is left kind of wondering what in the hell he should be doing about all of that. So interesting to watch, interesting to follow. If you're interested in Australian politics, you probably won't watch Question Time. No one ever seems to. When I go online to watch it, there's only a few hundred people. So obviously those people are bored, nothing else to do with their time. So there they are watching with me, Question Time. It's always a good way, I think, to keep in contact with actually some of the key issues that are happening at this particular time, and also to have a look at how the government is prepared to answer some of those questions that they're asked and what sort of questions are being asked. And it's evident at the moment that the questions being asked from the Liberal Party don't hit a punch at all. They're limp, they're soggy, they're without any structure. It's fascinating to watch. One particular person whose name escapes me at the moment, from the Liberal Party, often present a paper and say that during question time they want to table a particular paper, and they tried to do that today, and Burke from the Labor side, who's the manager of the business in the House of Reps, he got up and said, well, that paper's available on the internet, so there's no need, it's nothing extraordinary about that. And so they do some strange sort of things in order to rattle the cage, and it just doesn't happen. It is pathetic to watch. I must confess that when the Liberals were in government, they seemed to be a little bit more effective in terms of, or the Labor Party seemed to be a little bit more effective in attacking the Labor Party, and maybe that was because the Liberal Party had more to use. They had more ammunition, I guess. And at this stage, it's the early stage of Parliament, so no doubt things will hot up later on as there are continual misgivings by the Labor Party, I guess. So what I wanted to talk about, though, is there's this woman on Sky News that I think is an absolute scream, and I love it when she comes on board because it gives so much fodder for a conversation, and I just don't know why it is. Sorry, folks, I just have to turn off my phone. I realised I left it on. I don't know why it is that she abuses me, and look, I have to be very careful here because I don't want to criticise her appearance necessarily, but it's odd, to say the least. I don't know whether she thinks she's a doll. I don't know whether she thinks she's a Barbie doll or she's playing dress-ups or what it is she's attempting to do. But her name's Daisy. Can't remember her other name, but even the name is odd. I don't even know if it's a real name. And I do wonder why Sky News have her on at all, because she doesn't... Look, I should not be critical of her. She's probably doing a good job. She's probably getting well paid for what it is that she does. But she spouts shit. And so I can be critical of that, if not her appearance, even though when I show her in a moment, her appearance will intrigue you, as it does everybody, I think, who sees her. And I just don't know what it is that is the attraction And I'm certainly not saying she's an unattractive woman, because that's not true. But, one does wonder. So I have this clip now. One of the things that interests me, or that I want to talk about, I guess, is Meghan Markle, and the fact that there seems to be continual criticism of this woman. And I watched a interview with Harry not long ago, whereby he was talking about how the impact of the criticism has had on his wife, Meghan. And I actually, when he had offered these explanations, I felt quite sorry for her, because there are some mental well-being issues which have occurred as a result of the continual criticism. Now, fair enough. People will argue that if you place yourself in the limelight, as she has done by marrying a Windsor, that perhaps you're fair game or you're a target. Well, you're not. In the day, I used to watch with my wife Suits, in which Meghan was one of the stars. And I liked her back then. I liked the character that she played. I liked her acting. She was okay. There was no reason to criticise her as an artist. I thought she was fine. But once she's taken over this other role, she's become a target for the right. And anybody who's got an issue with her, I think, being black, so there's heaps of racist undertones in relation to Meghan Markle, which is completely unfair, unfounded, racist crap, shouldn't happen. So the superior white nationalists are going after her like you wouldn't believe. And the fact that she's not a royal, the fact that she's an American, and it takes me back to the old days when I wasn't around, but, I had heard there was a woman by the name of Simpson who wanted to marry one of the royals, and he had to abdicate as a result of all of that. So there's all of these, there's this undertone of superiority and I guess white nationalism too that comes into it. But I think it's unfair, right? Because I don't know if we see it here, but there was a snippet which I think I saw on Twitter, whereas if I was really organised for today's feed, I probably would have included it, where she was with a crowd of people after Elizabeth's demise, and she was walking alongside that crowd, and someone offered her some flowers, and someone who was I was going to say a carer, that's not the right word, someone who was with her or attending to her needs or whatever, suggested they take the flowers off her, and she said, no thanks, I'm quite happy to take them, and I'm happy to greet these people. And that was turned into a negative. Like, it's almost everything that this woman does gets a negative response on Twitter. And all I can say is just leave the poor friggin' woman alone. What does it say about you if you want to offer such criticism of her? And then I have to think, well, Daisy's about to get some criticism here, so maybe I ought to be careful about what I say. But I do think that we need to be a little bit more cautious, and we certainly need to call out racism and this sense of superiority that some people have over others when we can. So I think basically there's a whole lot of people out there, probably women too, who are resentful that Harry didn't ask them to marry him. And as a result, that resentment builds up into tropes and builds up into a sense of antagonism and vitriol that is bloody unpleasant, to put it mildly. So here's so there's lots of stuff. So there's this conversation anyway that's about to be had by Daisy and her crew, and I always think this is like watching the Three Stooges on Sky, seriously. And all of these people, I don't understand what gives them credibility. They're only opinion people, so their opinion is worth bugger all. It's just an opinion, as is mine. So let's just have a look at my friend Daisy. Now, this is Daisy. Hello, Daisy. It's good to see you. You're looking well. You're looking sprightly. Love your lipstick, babe. I think your lipstick is absolutely outstanding. And what's more, the lipstick actually matches the collar area, I think. It very, very contrast, and the contrast with the other part of the dress, which is darker. I forget what colour you'd call that, mauve. But anyway, it's lovely. It looks beautiful, and then there's the black around the side, which makes you look like you're 100. But she's critical also of Megan, and I think this is one of those women who perhaps would have liked to have thought that perhaps she got the gig, and that she never had the opportunity to meet Harry. She probably doesn't like red-headed boys anyway, but she is extremely critical of them. So let's hear what she has to say.
Welcome back to Outsiders. I'm Daisy Cousins, filling in for Rita Panahi, and joining me is the jovial James.
So she's filling in for Rita. Oh my God. There's another. Now, to be fair, Rita often has some things to say that, very rarely makes sense, but she makes more sense than this woman does. But she's another one of the clowns on Sky.
James Morrow and the remarkable Rowan Dean. Now, in addition to being a profoundly moving commemoration of an extraordinary life, the funeral of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth...
Now, need to make a statement about the funeral. Now, it's fair enough to say that I'm not a monarchist. Don't see any value in the monarchy. I don't know. I haven't got any personal grudges against Elizabeth II. I think she did a fair job, whatever that job might be. Still in question. Don't know. Don't care. And I do wonder what it is that people think about the monarchy that makes her such a wonderful person. And you know, when I ask people, what do you think she did? Well, she created some stability. Now, I do wonder if she wasn't there, would that mean that the United Kingdom would just fall apart? Is she like the key pillars to this place? Is she the cornerstone that kept it all together? And if that is the case, what was it that she actually did? So I often wonder, is it some sort of psychological power? Is there something intellectually brilliant about the monarchy that gives them a power and authority, a superpower, if you like, over their subjects and what's happening in their world? And no, not really. She's gone from 145 countries in the empire to about 40, and she's got a whole host of other countries, particularly the Pacific Islands, who wish to say goodbye. And Australia, hopefully, will at some point be one of those countries that'll say, bugger you, we've had enough, you haven't done anything for us. You know, you did invade our country, you did kill off as many of our Aboriginal people and First Nations people as you could. You sent a whole lot of convicts over here to start with, so you weren't looking at this place as being some healthy environment in which you could thrive and become as productive as you have been, actually. It was a dumping ground. Australia was a dumping ground for convicts, for Christ's sake. So I don't know what, and that when you arrived, you were led to believe that there was no one here, and that if there was, well, they were less than human and should have been eradicated. And you spent some 40, 50, 60 years endeavouring to do that, and to some extent still try to do that to this day to First Nations people. So what does the monarchy represent? Bugger all. Why do people respond to the monarchy? Because they like the character, they like the sense of royalty, they like the sense of a monarchy, I guess. They fantasize about it. It's a fantasy world in which they will never live. I mean, who in this world has 400 staff? Who in this world has someone lay out the toothpaste for you exactly to the centimetre on your toothbrush? Who irons your shoelaces for you, for God's sake? Nobody. They're an entitled bunch of shit people who do nothing to contribute to society, and yet they're praised as people like this dressed up thing over here does. That somehow they're important. Somehow they have credibility because we're in awe of the things that they don't do. Now, the Queen, to be fair, she had 600 odd organisations in which she was patron. Now, there's no way in the world anybody could manage 600 organisations as such, but a patron is simply just a name put on a placard to let people know that you have some form of authority. And if you get the Queen or someone of that ilk to represent you, then you are supposed to have some sort of meaning in the community because the Queen thinks you have value. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the Queen was a bad person. I don't believe that for a second. And but the impact that she had on the Commonwealth and the impact she had on her people and what she was a part of while she was there for her 70 years leaves a lot to be desired, particularly if you're from an African country such as Kenya, where while she was in power, their military became involved, there were uprisings and there were deaths as a result. And to what extent does the monarchy take responsibility for all of the harm that the British Empire has caused over the years? None. Absolutely none. And why would we celebrate that? We shouldn't, we wouldn't. Does it matter? Yes, it does. Because history matters. So, anyway, getting back to my friend and colleague here, she says this.
Elizabeth II was a reminder that nobody does pageantry like the Brits.
Oh, pageantry, of course. Pageantry. There you go. They're doing it very, very well.
However, it was the raw vulnerability from the royal family as they bid their beloved matriarch a final farewell that truly struck a chord.
I have no idea why I'm playing this. It's something we don't play in Australia. Well, I very rarely hear it. When I was at school, though, there was a lot of marching and playing God Save the Queen. For the future generations, we don't have to do that. And it will be, if we do it at all, it'll be God Save the King. And I would encourage people not to stand when we're doing this thing. Because, you know, why are we standing? Why are we commemorating them? They don't care about us. They have got nothing to do with us. They don't pass our laws. You know, they have someone representing them who gives royal assent, but they don't do anything. So what does it matter? And, you know, the sooner we decide to become a republic, I think, the better.
Duke and Duchess of Dreary haranguing them at seemingly every turn. It was truly gratifying to see the entire royal family uniting over their shared love of the late Queen.
The Duchess and Duke of Dreary, you know, I think it's fair game now, seriously. If she's going to start calling Harry and Meghan those sorts of names, I think it's about time we called her what she is. You know, fair's fair. You know, you're going to lay a label at somebody else, then, you know, you've got to expect to take it back, I guess. And, you know, frankly, I don't think Daisy Bell here would give a crap about what I say, but you're an idiot, you know, because firstly, you don't know these people, right? Now, I don't know you apart from what I'm seeing right now, and it's not very impressive, I can tell you that. And that the antagonism that these people have towards people that they don't know because they're envious of the position they hold is staggering. You know, I often wonder, well, look, what would happen if Daisy, for example, had an opportunity to meet up with Meghan and Harry? Would she snub them? No, she wouldn't. My guess is she'd bow down to them. that she'd do her curtsy, all that sort of stuff, shake their hand, say how lovely it is to meet you, that sort of stuff will go on. And the comments that she's making now would just become irrelevant. That she would never, ever sort of follow through on the views that she holds about these two royals. She wouldn't, because she's weak, a weak individual. So let's hear what more she has to say.
This begs the question, could reconciliation be on the cards for the royals and Meghan and Harry? Certainly there were flickers of that early in the mourning period, when Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, were joined by Harry and Meghan to greet grieving members of the public on a walkabout. Although, to be fair, their body language indicated the reunion might be...
Now, I love this bit because somehow Daisy at this point is an expert in body language. Now, I didn't know that that was on her resume, but clearly it must be. She's an excellent she can determine the way what people are thinking, how they act by how they're acting. Now, I'm about to determine how Daisy's thinking. By the way, she's acting not very well. There's not much happening between those ears apart from a whole host of biases, which she is completely unaware of, apparently, and doesn't care about. So here she is determining, just from this video alone, because she wasn't there, I don't think, and so here she is having a look at this video and saying, well, I think there are still some issues with regard to these people.
Polite, but glacial. Nevertheless,
Glacial.
since Megxit, it's always appeared to me that the royals ultimately wish to welcome Harry and Meghan back at some point. And certainly,
how would you even know
that was
that?
the impression the late Queen gave. However, Her Majesty was an unusually placid, conciliatory woman, and it is testament to her leadership that those traits...
I have to say here, just don't you love the way Daisy talks? Seriously. So here's a woman criticising the royals who talks with a plum in her mouth as if she would love the opportunity to be one of those people to, I don't know, she would like to be able to, well, just be one of them, I guess. And she puts on this really posh sort of voice and tries to articulate every possible word as if she's just come from, I don't know, Nadi, comes from the National School of Dramatic Arts or something. And but she sounds pathetic, to be quite honest. But let's see what else.
But a series of events during the mourning period leads me to believe that that may not be true.
Oh, really?
Soon
Now
after the walkabout
it's not
with the
true.
Waleses, it was revealed that while Meghan and Harry's children, Archie and Lilibet, will become prince and princess with the Queen's passing, King Charles will not
the Queen's
give them
passing.
his or her Royal Highness titles, a decision that has reportedly left Meghan and Harry furious. Then came an awkward faux pas of communication when the pair were initially invited to a glittering event at the palace hosted by the king for world leaders, but uninvited soon after, as it was clarified the event was for working royals only. And additionally, although Harry was eventually granted special permission to wear his military uniform for the vigil kept by the Queen's grandchildren after having been relieved of his honorary titles when he stepped away from royal duties, his grandmother's initials ER were stripped from the shoulder, as they are only to
Oh
be
my
used by
God! Oh my God! Let's just leave it at that, because you gotta laugh. Like, you gotta wonder whether this sort of performance is meant to be something that should be on the Sean McAuliffe show, as Mad as Hell, or some other ABC comedy review type program. And so we will dismiss them there for what they are. I've probably said enough about Daisy. Daisy, fabulous name. Never name your kid Daisy. We have, my son's got a dog called Daisy. No reference to her as being a dog, that's far from it, but just thought I'd just mention that in passing. So I want to turn now to another interesting character, which is Andrew Bolt. Now, I love having a go at Andrew because he's worth it, because he has to go at everybody else. And when Andrew raises the word hypocrisy, and I see the word hypocrisy, I think you must be talking about oneself. And in this case, now, I do need to say that he's talking about Lydia Thorpe, who's a member of the Greens Party and Indigenous herself. Now, I very rarely agree with Andrew about anything, but there are elements of this conversation that he has about Lydia Thorpe that I don't possibly disagree with. I wasn't there, so I didn't see it, but there are issues here which we should start to consider as being, well, not quite reporting, but certainly are issues which all of us could take exception to, I guess. The one I'm taking exception to is the fact that he refers to them as hypocritical. So let's see what he has to say, and we'll talk about it.
Abused an Aboriginal woman, made her cry, made her so stressed that she needed treatment from a nurse. If any Liberal MP, Scott Morrison maybe, was so rude to this Aboriginal woman that their own staff were horrified and apologised, you would not.
Well, I would like to think that anybody who made the sort of comments and treated someone or anybody, you shouldn't have to say whether it be Labor, Liberal, Green, Independent, Calathumpian, doesn't matter who you are, but if you were to say the sorts of things that are alleged to have been said by Lydia Thorpe, then I think it's wrong. It's just wrong. But what he does is make it a partisan thing. So he's going to make it, if you were Liberal and you said these things, Labor Party would have a go at you. But if you're the Greens, which is the point he's about to make, if you're the Greens, you don't. And then I'll talk about exactly what all of that means, though, because I think further clarity needs to be given to actually what the Greens might have done.
From the ABC, not from feminist activists, but there seems to be a very different rule for Greens Senator Lydia Thorpe. Probably the rudest, nastiest, the most abusive politician in federal parliament.
I'm not going to actually disagree with him there. I didn't agree with the way she entered into Parliament when she had to sign the document of allegiance and to be sworn into Parliament. I think she could have been, you don't have to agree with the fact that you've got to sign to the Queen and all that sort of stuff, as I've just said. But you don't have to be rude about it. And I think she's rather obnoxious. I agree with that. And she is the Greens' problem. I agree with that as well. So at this area, I do agree with Bolt.
And the question now is why Greens leader Adam Bandt says nothing. It's not just him, by the way.
Now, on this particular issue, Adam Bandt may not have said anything publicly, but that doesn't mean hasn't done anything privately. We don't know what conversations he's had with Lydia about her behaviour. Now, if I was Adam Bandt, I would tell her that if she didn't get her act together, I was going to say something else, but if she didn't get her act together, she could no longer be a part of the Greens Party and sack her from the party. That would be unhelpful, but she'd still remain in Parliament until the next election. But we don't know what he did. Now, what Bolt is suggesting here, that he should have come out in public and made a proclamation about his behaviour about her behaviour and what he has done in order to correct it. Now, that's not necessarily so. You don't have to go and air your dirty linen in front of the whole public. You just don't have to do that. You have to deal with it behind closed doors, you know. Let's face it, the Liberal Party try their best not to launder their linen in front of everybody. They've done that for decades. So to be arguing that the Greens should be doing the same is just hypocrisy in itself.
At a meeting in her office with two people identifying as Aboriginal, Geraldine Atkinson and Marcus Stewart, who are co-chairs of Victoria's Aboriginal-only Parliament, the first People's Assembly set up by the Andrews government to supposedly bring us reconciliation. Well, so much for reconciliation, because Atkinson, who was in her 70s, last year said Thorpe attacked her verbally in her office with such a nasty tirade that Atkinson needed medical attention from the parliamentary nurse. Adam Bandt at the time didn't say boo to any of that. No public reprimand of Thorpe, no apology to Atkinson. But now we learn that Senator Thorpe's former Chief of Staff did apologise to Atkinson, saying that what Thorpe did to her was appalling. In an email published by the Nine newspapers today, he said,
well done.
The conduct that I witnessed at that meeting was by far one of the most unprofessional displays I've ever seen, not just during the length of my career, but in my life. I was scared and in shock because I have never, ever been in that situation at work.
Now, I just want to say that that's a fair comment, because Bolt did something he very rarely does. He cited somebody else who was there. Novel approach, I think, Andrew. So in this case, someone else noticed it, was just as appalled as anybody else, felt hurt about what had happened, and so on. But, and I think this is the bit coming out where Bolt talks about the hypocrisy of it all, and I think Bolt is a great one for attacking everybody else. So I don't know whether Andrew uses the same sort of language or behaves in the same sort of way as Thorpe did. But we've seen plenty of evidence of him attacking everybody, particularly those people on the left, for what they think, whether it be about climate change or whether it be about The Voice or whatever it be about. He attacks relentlessly. And here he is making statements and comments about the way someone else is attacking and framing it in this version of hypocrisy.
If the Chief of Staff of a Liberal frontbencher wrote that about their own boss, that the way they yelled at an Aboriginal woman was frightening, the most unprofessional thing they'd ever seen, and they were scared. Do you think Greens leader Adam Bandt would stay silent? Or would he make a meal of that? Racist, racist.
I think it's only fair at this point that I raise the issue around sexual assault in Parliament. That it was an issue that's been going on for years, and yet Liberal Party did nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, Andrew, when you're talking about hypocrisy, don't you think you need to couch that in terms that perhaps the rest of us could understand? And that is the hypocrisy of parliamentarians in general to fail to deal with significant issues in their own building, for Christ's sake. And so, but he has to make it seem like the Liberals are far better than everybody. No, they're not. They're not. The history tells us they're worse. But you want us to believe that for some reason the Liberal Party is beyond reproach. Well, that's just not true.
It's tribal.
What's that? Far out. Hold on. Stop, Andrew. Stop, Andrew. Stop. They're tribal. Okay. I don't know of anybody else more tribal than the right. Really. You know, I think Pauline Hanson. I think Liberal Democrats. I think Liberal Party in general, particularly the far right. No one's more tribal than they are. Andrew, no one's more tribal than you are. You're the tribal leader. You should wear the headscarf, paint your face, be tribal, mate. because you're as tribal as they come. Yet, this accusation that the left are tribal, I'm not suggesting for a moment that to be tribal is I don't know whether it's all that unhelpful or not. Let me know what you think. But to be tribal means that you're in this select group of people and that you're often aggressive and often violent. Now, that's my interpretation. I could be wrong. I have been wrong before. So what does it mean then to be tribal in his sense? Well, I think it's that. I think it's about being violent, being abusive, being all those things that Andrew Bolt and his right-wing cohorts like Alan Jones and others are. So what else does Andrew have to say? Hypocrites.
So, what has Adam Bandt
Hypocrites.
said about this
They're
latest
hypocrites.
revelation?
My God,
No,
they're hypocrites.
Nothing at all. His spokesman just said, well, following correspondence from the First People's Assembly of Victoria, Mr. Bandt spoke with Senator Lydia Thorpe about the June 2021 meeting. What Bandt said to Thorpe, we're not told.
No, we're not told. And we don't care. Providing she doesn't do it again. And if she does do it again and she doesn't modify her behaviour, then, and we find out about it and Adam Bandt does nothing about it, then, you know, he needs to be poured over the coals then. But at this particular point, yep, he's right. We don't know what he said. Her behaviour was inappropriate. It was beyond description in a way. It was abusive. It was vindictive. It was hurtful. It was just wrong. And fortunately, you know, we now know about it. And I think that's a good thing. But it's up to Adam Bandt to pull her into line, which I am confident that my buddy, Mr. Bandt, is capable of doing that, because he knows that if he doesn't, he'll be damaging his party considerably. And to have her continue to behave as she has behaved in the past, and to say some of the things that she has said the way she says them, is just wrong. She could articulate her resentment of the monarchy, as I have just done, eloquently, beautifully put, to the point, you know, without question. But no, she will probably say things badly again. She and so perhaps there's an issue there about her own self-importance in this role. It's probably a surprise for her to even win the seat, and she probably isn't articulate enough maybe to be able to think things through and say things in a more diplomatic manner, which one has to do, otherwise he's going to wind up putting everybody offside. But to be aggressive in the way that she was, categorically, is simply wrong and must be dealt with. Now, if you've been able to walk through all of this video, then I thank you for that. If you're here now, you obviously have wandered through most of it. But I would like you to subscribe, ring the bell, make some comments below. Let me know what you think about some of the crap I talk about. And hopefully I'll be making more of these sort of live feeds. And I hope that you will continue to follow me on my show, so that I can talk to more people than the 55 that now subscribe, which is really sad. Try and boost up those numbers for me. I appreciate it. Love you. Take care, look after yourselves, and be safe.